2020 is going to be an interesting year, filled with success and filled with failure. For which game gets tied to which, however, that'll be up to us as gamers to find out. Today we're going to be diving into the upcoming MMORPGs and MMOs in development. Short disclaimer that the games on the list are in no particular order and you will see a lot of content that's in need of polish. If you're looking for a 100% finished product or the next big thing, this may not be the one for you. But if you came to this video to see what new titles we can expect in the next year or so for this genre, stick around, and let's jump right into it. Kicking it off with something simple, yet sweet. PROFANE is a sandbox MMORPG focused on freedom, adventure, and territorial domination where players will be able to build, destroy, and conquer villages, cities, and empires. This game is set in a medieval fantasy dynamic world, and like we talked about in a previous video, this game has already shown some mechanics related to its naval system, housing, and building functions so far. So far, the art style of it almost reminds me personally a bit of WildStar. The game is being developed by a company called Insane, a Brazilian independent game studio founded in Sao Paulo in 2009. PROFANE, although in development, is past the stage of pre-alpha. Recently, they concluded their testing phase in September, and it lasted all the way from March of 2018. I'm kind of sad that I didn't get the chance to try it, but right now they're in production of their alpha testing phase, so next time we see this game, it should have even more cool additions than we've already seen. The stream they did recently showcases some of the features of the game and the scale of its world in small bits. We even get to take a look at what some of the PvP looks like, which seems to resemble the pace of Darkfall. For those of us who used to play and love that title, this game should give us a modern experience similar to that. At number 14, we've got ourselves a semi-well-known crowdfunded title, one of the first announcements we got of a game combining the Unreal Engine 4 and the Spatial OS backend. I'm talking about Oath, an MMO that on Kickstarter and its own website have raised funds for the developer team to bring this game to our doorstep. Action combat with several planned classes and more coming, ranging from the Berserker, the Pyromancer, Rogue, Guardian, the Knight, the Ranger, and the Cryomancer. Both will feature things like dungeons, raids, even a revolutionized guild land system. However, it will still have a focus in the PvP area, with the arena being the only form that we have mention of thus far, but it's stated to be always open, alongside being able to openly dual request anyone at any time for a quick fight in the open world. For the arena itself, it will feature PvP in the form of 1v1s, 2v2s, capture the flag, and other new game modes exclusive to Oath that will be available in both ranked and normal mode. And I'm also hoping that means we'll get some battlegrounds in there as well. Right now there's no testing phase for the game, and I'm personally not sure what the next couple of months of the game will look like, but it's been said that we should be getting some type of footage for Oath this month. Hopefully it'll showcase some of the more inner features we learned about during its Kickstarter. This is one I've been very curious about since the split of Spatial OS and Unity. One thing that I'm very glad about is that they haven't succumbed to using the most rehashed, generic class choices that we continue to see time and time again. In this one we have a man shooting a fire beam from his shield, some fire tornadoes being conjured, and even the epic rampage of a Berserker. If that's not a good recipe to deliver a lot of enjoyment class-wise, I'm not sure what is. Number 13 is one that was also included in last year's MMO list. Like Oath, it was one that was also back-ended by Spatial OS. This title is being developed on the Unity engine, and it's being called Fractured MMO. Development of this game is in the hands of Dynamite Studios, and this is one that has already undergone its first alpha testing phase. Back in April of this year, we got the chance to jump into its early stages of gameplay. Now, it did feature its combat system, and at the time we got to play around with a lot of its skills. However, at this time there was not a huge selection of monsters and there was no dungeon content. The majority of the content involved us building our homes in Fracture to test that aspect out, plus putting some strain on the server to test if it could handle it. One of the things that makes this game unique is its planetary system. You can choose to begin life on one of 3 different worlds, one of which is always known peace. In this specific world, attempting to attack others is not permitted, and when it's fully developed could either have serious consequences for trying or being unable to altogether. The second planet is one of neutrality. The first planet being the home of the humans, the planet Syndesia, while the second planet is inhabited by beastmen, surrounded in vegetation, with the populace having a deep connection to nature which endows them with superhuman resilience and keen survival skills. This planet is one for a more cooperative and defensive kind of gameplay. Even though the game pits you mainly towards the environment itself like Syndesia does, it takes it a step further by also presenting opportunity for conflict, whether it be between the wildlife and your own or other players entirely. The last planet is inhabited by demons, banished to a hostile planet of desolation, scarce in resources alongside being filled with danger. Demons possess an inner evil alignment that makes it natural for them to prey on each other and other races. It's no secret what happens in a zone like this. If Syndesia is the PvE planet and Arboreus for the Beastmen is the PvPvE planet, that only leaves one possibility for the land they call Tartarus. This game entirely is an experience very comparable to one such as Albion Online, but with varied twists here and there. You'll of course come across the ability to hunt, gather, scavenge, craft, play the economy, and survive, but the planetary aspect might allow us to travel between planets in the future to wage war or prevent conflict. They are in the process of preparing their Alpha 2 testing phase, and it appears that they will have an announcement for that specific topic in mid-October, so the next test for this one could be right around the corner. And now we're going even further into the dark and gritty side of these MMOs. The more cutthroat these titles become, the more I fall in love with them. We could use a little bit more chaos in this genre like we used to have, and number 12 is certainly going to pull no punches like all the rest. Being developed by Ninja Loot Games on the Unity engine, Defend the Night seeks to offer a fantasy MMORPG experience with unique leveling and progression systems. We as players have the ability to build and defend our own cities, join friends and allies in dangerous dungeon crawls with a vast landscape to explore. 4 different confirmed races including humans, Relgalts, elves. With 11 different classes for the game already, it specifically aims to give us back that dark fantasy MMORPG experience in the modern age. Recently we have seen footage that goes into some of the game's combat system, specifically the magic system of the wizard class, but that's just one of many class choices we have yet to see. The world of Defend the Night goes by the name Immortal Ha, housing the continent of Certovia, which is surrounded by waters lapping on the shores and massive waves crashing against the rocky cliffs. The river flowing through the grasslands and forests could always present an opportunity for farming, building up villages, hunting, and learning skills and trades of all types. With an enriching lore and dangerous world before us, Defend the Night is currently in development towards opening its doors to crowdfunding, once it has a very presentable product so players will not feel misled. When that comes, we'll be there. Unchained is one that I'm glad to say we can finally talk about. I've been in the testing phases now for about a year now for this game, and they've given us all the ability to talk about our experiences. No screenshots or videos yet, but we can discuss it. For those of you that do not know, CAMELOT Unchained is the spiritual successor to Dark Age of Camelot, one of the classic 3D medieval fantasy MMORPGs of the early 2000s, and one of the ones that I was sad to miss out on, alongside Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies. But these ones, Shadowbane, EverQuest, Vanilla WoW, and a few others were ones that were or would have been a pleasure to experience during their primes. But I can at least say my first ever PC MMO was RuneScape, so I'm thankful for that at least. CAMELOT Unchained is being developed by Mark Jacobs and the studio of City State Entertainment. Coming from a built-in house engine named after the game itself, the Unchained engine aims to deliver large-scale, real-time battles between players. 1,000 of us up close and personal so far, and more to come is what they have on their website. One of the tests they had previously did showcase this as well. There was about 50 to 75 different players, and the team had flooded the rest of the world with bots as far as the eye could see. It was an insane experience to be a part of, and I was pleasantly shocked that my computer did not explode with all that interaction. Recently, they've been testing things more on the mechanics side. The last test that I was a part of, they had been experimenting with siege engines and both their castle assault plus defense system. They've begun doing some further beta tests with new additions, but I have yet to be a part of one of these. The tests themselves are usually held for a few hours at a time, but I ended up missing the one that they had for the new minstrel class. This game aims to deliver that massive multiplayer war that never ends for players. The ability to jump into conflict day in and day out with nothing held back. Looking for a game where you can build your own unique home with an experience similar to their cube system? Prefer more of a crafting lifestyle or war-based one between the Arthurians, the Vikings, and the Tuatha? CAMELOT Unchained has got what you need and more. Since we're now able to talk about the testing phases themselves, we will have to go over more in the future regarding this game. But safe to say, I'm very excited for that. And just like CAMELOT, Number 10 is a war-based crowdfunded MMO that aims to deliver an intense experience filled with constant conflict. However, the twist on this one is that it will instead function with campaigns that reset on a monthly, weekly, and even yearly basis. I'm talking, of course, about Crowfall. Being developed by Artcraft Entertainment on the Unity engine to provide the Throne War experience. It'll provide us with intense battles that demand strategy, survival, and a fierce competitive spirit. This is a game like CAMELOT that focuses primarily on the PvP, the territorial aspect, and lastly, the factions. You can choose from the Order, Chaos, and Balance. Of these 3, you can choose from 12 different races, each with their own set of classes. Since the last time we talked about Crowfall a year ago in the previous top crowdfunding MMOs video, it has undergone a lot of changes. They've always had the campaigns in place to test out combat between the big groups, the crafting system, and the territory conflict in the environment itself, but since then they've also added the God's Reach, the PvE-based new player world for those looking to learn the game, while still having access to the Eternal Kingdom, which are player-created, player-managed worlds that act as markets, housing zones, plus social hubs. Lastly, of course, we'll still have the ability to jump into what's called the Infected, which is the 3-faction PvP world with the tradition of Dark Ages or Planetside. Crowfall is currently working on adding the Dregs, the guild vs guild PvP campaigns alongside the Divine Favor system. The game itself was previously slated to soft launch in 2019, and right now there's no clear indication of said launch date. However, they do seem to be making very good progress, so if I had to personally guess, I would imagine that by Q2 of next year, this game will be ready to ship into its next testing phase. Number 9 is one that, although is in development, has released at least some part of itself in the form of a free-to-play title on Steam. But just like the other titles, it has a community completely dedicated to seeing it succeed. One that was branded the chosen one of crowdfunded MMOs and the future of the genre. I'm talking, of course, about Ashes of Creation. This is one that has had a lot of excitement from the gaming community the past 1 to 2 years. The game itself had a lot of planned features that the gamers could get behind, the node system and naval system included. But on top of that, it also provided a visually satisfying experience with the high fidelity client that provides an improvement compared to other sandboxes we're used to. Like we previously discussed, this game is still currently in development, but separate from other games, this one has another version of itself being developed alongside it, and that's the Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, the Battle Royale. This version simply allows the players to test out the combat system and skill systems of Ashes, and although it has not been well received on Steam, players do take into account that it gives them something instead of nothing. Ashes of Creation takes place in the world of Vera. Intrepid Studios is aiming to incorporate the best parts of MMORPGs with innovative sandbox concepts, player-verse environment, siege warfare, a diverse economy which includes the caravan system, and more. Since we talked about the game last year, development has seemingly shifted towards the Battle Royale, however we do not know what goes on behind the scenes for the MMO version. They've said that what they do in the Battle Royale can easily be transitioned over to the MMO, and in regards to the Castle Siege and Horde mode that were slated for last year in December and this year in March, we're still waiting for those testing phases to begin. I believe the delay in these 2 testing phases is part of the reason why the Battle Royale has been so poorly received on Steam. I myself will admit that I've never been too crazy about Battle Royales, and there's only ever been a select few that I've had interest in, Hunter's Arena Legends and Valhalla being 2 of them, but we'll ultimately have to see where this one goes. Over the next few years, I'm sure the game will generate eyes from the gaming community as it progresses, but at the moment, most of the MMORPG community that isn't already playing one of the modern MMOs is focused on Arcade Unchained. Speaking of which, quick message for the future viewers. Now, if you happen to be coming from Arcade after being burnt out, or if 6 months down the line you're watching the video like this because XL Games told GameGo to pull a 180 and revert the cash shop back to pay to win, then welcome aboard. Grab a seat and join us refugees on our long journey to finding a new home. Now let's get back to it, continuing with number 8. I would consider the next one to be a trip down memory lane, and it's definitely one that's going to sate some of that Mortal Online experience I've been missing for so long. Reign of Guilds is one that's all about guild warfare. Create your guild, conduct alliances or join wars, trade goods, and conquer the land. In Reign of Guilds, you do have access to titles like you would in Chronicles of ELYRIA. However, with this one, it focuses on 2 roles, and those are counts and kings, with associations to manage their population and economy. This is a full loot experience just like most of the titles on this list, and I would classify it as one of the old school, hardcore sandboxes. The camera view is exclusive to mainly first person view with non-target combat system, with friendly fire and a flexible system of buffing. The map currently consists of 1 kingdom with 4 different parts: north, south, east, and west, and over about 200 to 250 kilometers squared map size. In each part of said map, we've got between 6 and 7 different counties, 6 to 10 towns, and about 30 castles. In the game, instead of going off of a guild system, it will be associations. There's 3 different categories of such. You've got the merchants, the crafters, and finally the mercenaries. And also, speaking of crafting, there's over about 10,000 plus different combinations you can get with it. And it's also the guild itself that would join an association, with one guild being the supreme guild of the association itself. And as you can see, the main functions of Reign of Guilds revolve around its territory system. Currently there's only 1 race in the game, which is humans, with no conventional classes. With 2 different directions that your character can pursue, you can either go down the physical based path or the magic one. Although the game does not have a class system, it still does have what's called vocations, which can be separated into 3 different types. The first one being universal, has the choice of assassin, barbarian, blacksmith, or thief. The second one, having an emphasis on physical development, has the options of crusader, gladiator, hunter, and steelmaster or weaponsmith. The last one having an emphasis on magical development, where you have the archmage, the druid, the enchanter, plus inquisitor or necromancer. The game is stated to be in its pre-alpha stage, currently heading towards alpha, with pre-alpha only being available for the Reign of Guild club members. Signups can be done on their website, so I'll be sure to leave a link to this one and the other game signups in the description below. Following Reign of Guilds up with an MMO that wants to sprinkle a little bit of spice on the genre, wants to give players the freedom to help shape design as you would in a modded version of Skyrim or Fallout. I'm talking about Seconds from Silence, a game that wants to mesh MMORPGs with the freedom that modding can provide. This is a title that takes on a lot of inspiration from the Elder Scrolls and Witcher series, promising players with the opportunity to shape the world around them by building camps, houses, and castles, or even being able to overpower cities, guilds, or even kingdoms by politics. This is one that I'm very interested in because of the capabilities of an MMO that allows us to modify it could be. Now granted, we don't have the ability to change fundamental game mechanics and things like that, which is a good thing, but being able to make graphical, character, and equipment mods would be something that could change the game completely. Case in point, with Skyrim at its baseline, it's a pretty good looking game, but modified into the 2K and 4K ratio, it looks like something completely next generation. This is some of the possibilities we may get with a game like this, specifically because they've already conducted an interview with Nexus Mods, which is the central hub for game modding. I'm hoping as a result that if this game does start to pick up traction, that it will attract people capable of great modifications. Because since you can change the character models as well, you could probably come up with all sorts of different characters to create for the world. They said that when it comes to that, they will have a system in place that allows characters to vote on modded creations to be implemented into the game. With 9 different races being implemented into the game currently, we have multiple choices of where we want our characters to go. These pathways are called roles. For the roles of this game, we have the specific ones: kings, commoners, mercenaries, thieves, adventurers, pirates, blacksmiths, alchemists, vampires, vampire hunters, sorcerers, priests, traders and bandits, and holy paladins and assassins. Currently, players are waiting on the alpha testing phase to start. However, due to the company being affected by the hurricanes not too long ago, the testing has since been pushed back. At the moment, we're waiting on the opportunity to jump in, but I'm very hopeful for this one to work out. Number 6 is where things start to take a less dark and gritty approach to a more modernized, smooth sailing one. Some of these will be closer to the theme parks that people are currently used to. Let's begin the transition with Ember Sword. This game, alongside others, has taken up the mantle of modern-day sandbox MMORPGs to give us an experience filled with endless adventures. With this game, as you're able to see, it features the top-down view, giving you the ability to engage with your character and the environment around you with an isometric view. It features things like classless-based progression, an economy fueled solely by the players, player-owned land and commerce hubs, unrestricted crafting system, and finally, PvP content, some of which is mentioned when they talk about the outlaw camps. One of the best ways I've seen to describe this game is if you were to stir up RuneScape and Albion in a bowl and throw a little bit of modern sauce on it before you tossed it in the oven, you'd get a game like this. Being developed as a free-to-play title by SoCouch Studios, Ember Sword has received a lot of positive feedback from its community, and like many other titles listed in this video, the team behind the game has been in constant communication with its player base about its development, and if this game turns out to be even as half as good as it looks, I think we'll be in for a great time. As talked about in my previous video, they do have an insider program for this game, so if you're looking to learn more about its progress as it happens, that'll be the best thing to join. You can do so on their main website, which is embersword.com, but I'll be sure to link it in the description below. This is another one you won't want to miss. Phew, the competition is getting tough. We're finally down to number 5, and it's been a blast going over these upcoming titles so far, but we've still got more to dive into. This is one that I still need to remember to upgrade my pledge package for. A spiritual successor to EverQuest with a legendary team of developers, including the members that had created the classic in question so long ago. I'm talking, of course, about Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen. Being developed by Visionary Realms is a game with the following more dedicated than an army fighting for a seasoned general in war. This is one that is planned to serve the player versus environment experience that previous EverQuest players had been craving ever since. A game that doesn't just throw you into the world and hold your hand at every turn, or make you feel like you know exactly what you're getting into from the very beginning. Nothing is what it seems, and things are always more than meets the eye. having the ability to unlock different dialogue options in quests through specific phrases and words said to NPCs, having the ability to look at a book in a library of a dungeon a bit longer than everyone else to maybe come across a solution to a puzzle or a hidden treasure location. They have been aiming for the sky and beyond with this game. However, there have definitely been some changes in how the game will function. It appears that alongside the majority of the content being based around PvE, there will in fact be some PvP mechanics implemented into the game. Whether these will be in at launch remains to be seen, but from the sounds of it, you shouldn't have your gameplay affected if you are a primarily PvE player. The world of Pantheon, codenamed Terminus, features 9 different unique races alongside a variety of different classes that will allow you to immerse your character in its world. Whether it's the cleric, the dire lord, the monk, the wizard, the paladin, the ranger, the summoners, the druids, the warriors, or the rogues, enchanters, or shamans, this game will give you the ability to hopefully play the way you wish, with different playstyles and bonuses plus negatives to match. The type of character you choose can also affect the way that the game reacts to you. For instance, having a dire lord in your party, which is one of the tank classes, is more beneficial than having a warrior when dealing with magic-based monsters. Dire lords have the toolkit required to better survive in a situation like that, just like a paladin will have a much better chance to survive against undead. Pantheon aims to bring back that legendary challenge of old school MMORPG experiences. Your party setup will not simply consist of the Holy Trinity, but also people that are capable of crowd controlling mobs as their specific role. You'll also have people specifically dedicated to buffs and more. Right now, the community of Pantheon has been very curious, and even more so now because of the recent blog posts about its progress. The alpha test is also being eagerly waited on, and right now there's no exact date for it, but rest assured, the community will be lying in wait for this one. Now I know that so far, we've only talked about medieval and fantasy-based games for the most part, but that doesn't mean that it needs to be the entire theme of the games on this list. Now we've got some real titles from other themes that are building their way to releases. Whether it's Dual Universe or Star Citizen, the space sandbox genre has earned its spot amongst the most anticipated titles just like all the others. However, neither of these two will be the ones in the next topic. Number 4 belongs instead to STARBASE. Set to release on Steam and under development from Frozen Byte, one of my favorite studios that has graced us with the co-op dream experience of Trine. They are aiming to deliver a hybrid voxel space MMO that includes the perfect recipe of the genre, including a fully destructible plus infinitely expanding universe, but takes things a step further with its features, including its very own in-game coding system. Although it has a focus on building and designing both spaceships and stations, exploration, resource gathering, crafting, and combat are also a part of its systems. The coding system is going to be one of its most ambitious features, having the ability to code your own ship to autopilot, being able to construct rail movers, program facilities and tractor beams. The possibilities are endless. With the hilarious name of YOLOL, Starbase puts the freedom that space simulators should have in the hands of the players. If there was ever a game that allowed you to build a full-on transformer with the baseline functions alone, I'd put my cards on Starbase. The coding part is also just scratching the surface of its features. As players are introduced to early access, it will allow us to settle the orbits of one of its planets, eventually being able to travel to the planet's moons, while designing and engaging in combat with spaceships along the way. Later on down the line is when we may start to see the ability to land on planets, but at the moment they are focusing primarily on the space functions, and building their way in instead of starting at the planet's surface to build our way out. This one is currently slated for release in early access on Steam in 2019, which gives us about 2 months max left to wait for this title, unless it ends up getting bumped back to the next year, which is definitely possible, but one thing's for sure, when we finally get the chance to play it, it'll be an awesome experience if it ends up remaining true to the gameplay and features we've seen thus far. Heading into number 3 is going to be a short but sweet trip considering the gravity of the team behind its creation, but mainly also because the game itself is still under NDA. That game is Amazon's very own New World MMO, an experience that reminds me a lot of modern day Darkfall. I'd say in terms of a modern experience of that game, this one and Ashes is probably as close as it's gonna get. This one allows you to choose your role and define your destiny as you survive perils of a haunted wilderness. The land has the theme of a 17th century fantasy with a dark twist. You have the ability to create hundreds of items from magical elixirs and deadly weapons to sprawling fortifications. The game itself features things like open world PvP, territorial war / building, action-filled combat, and several different ways to build your character. Now I won't say anything about the testing phase concluded back in June, other than the sole fact that it was pretty awesome. but overall we're still waiting for the new world to return. But I would highly recommend checking out this game if you're one of those people that was ruined by a dungeon crawler game like Vindictus, or you racked up over 2,000 hours in Black Desert and now everything that's not built in HD looks like complete cardboard to you now. I think you'll at least be able to appreciate this one graphically. The gameplay itself might drive you away, especially if you're not a fan of open world PvP, but if graphics mean everything to you, I hope this will be one that you can nestle into and enjoy. And finally, we've reached the number 2 spot, with continuing the tradition of including the first big crowdfunded MMO that I've ever backed. One that has evolved over the years from starting as just an idea to becoming one that dares to tread where few MMOs have ever gone. It puts the M&S in Medieval Simulator and has a rockstar team behind it that excels at keeping their community up to date with awesome progress. Coming all the way from Soulbound Studios, it's Chronicles of ELYRIA. One that, like others in the list, has certainly evolved a bit since our last MMO video. Chronicles is a game that wants to help bring the genre to the next level. A level where playing an MMO doesn't mean you just grind out from point A to point B, and you can start to maybe enjoy the game after you reach that destination. In a game like this, it's not just the destination, but it's the journey. It's why I love a lot of these sandboxes, because they provide unique experiences you can't get anywhere else. It has a lot of different features it wants to provide, but the best idea I can give of what its government system is like is when I compare it to the Guild 2 or Renaissance. And for the land management / kingdoms themselves, I like to think of Crusader Kings 2. The game simply wants to give you the ability to go anywhere, do as much as you can, be as much as you can be. Whether it be a bandit, a craftsman, a soldier in the army, Chronicles wants to have it all. To start with, your character in this game isn't just your random playable avatar that disappears every time you log out. In Chronicles, they seek to develop a game where your character continues to interact with the world around them even when you log out for the night. Your character and the characters around you age. They have needs to survive, and despite the game being very based upon player interaction, there is a big emphasis on non-playing characters and what they can do. They fight, hunt, and gather just as you do. Land that is owned by them continues to prosper or fall by the game's design, and it's one of the many reasons I'm excited about a game like this. I feel like to have an actual living, breathing world in a sandbox, at some point NPC interaction needs to be a big part of it. Recently, they finished conducting their first phase of domain and settlement selection, alongside now releasing footage from their pre-alpha entirely. In one of my previous videos, we've gone over the pre-alpha footage we've seen, however, there appears to be even more that we haven't talked about yet. The end of September, they took a look at some of their dungeon exploration, while also giving us commentary about the mechanics of exploring one. It's important to keep in mind that, like a lot of these titles, when you see the pre-alpha footage, it is not the final product, and anything seen in it graphically should be taken with a grain of salt. That being said, Chronicles of ELYRIA is one of the MMOs I'm most anticipating, because the MMO genre is in need of some help when it comes to the future of new ones, unless everybody's planning on playing the current titles for the next 20 years. Because let's not kid ourselves, the genre itself is in a bad spot. I consider it a privilege that anyone even cares to try anymore, and that's why I tend to flock more towards these upcoming titles. But even though there is a chance of success or failure with any of these games, I still have no problem believing in a game like Chronicles. Games are never going to evolve if we aren't willing to give other people a chance. How can anyone ever improve if we aren't given the chance to fail and try again?
I failed. Good. Now go fail again.
There have been losses.
You got a point.
Copy that. Tally's on me. Let's say aye.
Come on, press start. The world is changed.
And finally, the last one on our list could be the biggest fairy tale of all, but it's certainly one that I'm sure a lot of people would love to see. Coming from a match made in heaven and probably the closest thing we'll get to a next-gen MMO for a while, Papa Amazon and ELYRIA Technologies have partnered up to make a baby, and his or her name is Lord of the Rings MMO. Now, not much is known about this game yet, but if you don't know who ELYRIA Technologies is, they're the parent company of Warframe, which means Amazon Game Studios, probably one that has Thor and Oakenshield's vault worth of funding, and this team are developing a game under the Lord of the Rings name, set to be some point before the events of the movies, which could mean we'll see all sorts of interesting characters, and maybe, since they do say we'll see creatures we haven't seen before, we might get a look at creatures from the Silmarillion. Now, combat-wise, we've got nothing but speculation at the moment, but if the combat does come close to Shadow of War, Lord of the Rings Conquest, or even Warframe, I think we've got a really good time on our hands. They've been radio silent about the game and its progression, but in their defense, the second announcement of the game was released in July, so I think it's safe to say they'll probably need more time before showcasing anything substantial. Quite a bit of time, more than likely. Now, I'd imagine in 2020 we might at least get a trailer of some sort, if not a testing phase for the game, but I'd imagine this one will be the type of game to go straight from development right into release or early access. But next year, with the titles we've got coming to our shores, like the ones we've talked about and some that weren't even mentioned yet, like Seed Online and Phantasy Star Online 2 if it counts, and more. But there will be even more titles coming to the eastern shore of the world. Some other ones like Blue Protocol, Project BBQ, or whatever they changed that amazing looking game's name to, etc. So I think it's safe to say that we might not be getting the Golden Age of MMOs anytime soon. Looks like instead, we're going back to the Dark Ages.